perfect. Wonderful, wonderful round of women.
When you both think of Pakistan, have you been to Pakistan?
No,
I haven't. You want to?
I haven't.
Oh, so then let's start with you. When you think of Pakistan, or when people ask you, what comes to your mind, really?
There was this one chance of visiting Pakistan quite a few years ago on a state program as a government delegation. But somehow that didn't work out at the last moment because of some, some things came up and the tour got cancelled and everything. So we were selected for that, and we were quite excited actually to, go and visit the country. What first comes to my mind when I hear about Pakistan is since we have this history with with this nation a long time back, I have grown up listening to stories from my grandparents, from my parents about how they survived the liberation war and what they went through, and we have family friends and who actually took part actively in the war. So there's no denying that there's this history, and it is also a part of me when as a person who grew up in this country, who belongs to Bangladesh, I have that what should I say,
Reservations?
that yeah, I guess so, yeah. I get that bit of, I would say, a hesitation about speaking about Pakistan, maybe about delving too much into the Pakistan periphery, I would say. But being a dancer, as an artist, I think it helps you to become a person with a broader mind, not just a person belonging from a country, but also a person, I guess, in general. So when you're an artist, I think you look into things a bit differently. So I think there's so much more to to any country other than its political identity. I think there's so much more to its people, to its culture, to everything, the nature, to everything that that country has. And a country can have various facets, and you can look into a country from various angles. So while I think I have my reservations while looking into Pakistan, being a Bangladeshi, I would say I also have a lot of interest in its culture and in its nature as well, because I've heard that it has it is a beautiful landscape in some places, having mountains and the plains near the Himalayas that they have. And also thinking about Pakistan brings back one name that truly inspires me, is Nahid Siddiqui, the Kathak dancer from Pakistan. So that's like when you think as an artist, when I think as a dancer, Nahid Siddiqui, I think, represents Pakistan to me in that sense. You have, Pakistan has such wonderful vocal artists, musicians, such wonderful poetry that we get to, read, that comes out of Pakistani people writing. So I think I'm quite interested in getting to know Pakistan more through these angles, rather than, seeing it as how we grew up to see it.
That was a very interesting answer, and I do feel that state fed narratives have to be looked beyond. So what about you, Seema?
So I've actually been to Faisalabad, Islamabad, and Lahore, and I really liked Lahore. I went to the museum there. Faisalabad is a bit different, but my father was there for about a year on a sabbatical when he was teaching. So that's how I got to see the country a little bit. It was just for like a month on vacation. By Pakistan, because I didn't grow up in Bangladesh, though I am here now for several years, I don't have as much of a charged reaction to the signifier Pakistan as I know many people do in Bangladesh. Although I'm very aware of the history, and my parents as well tell me stories about what they went through, their grandparents went through. But yeah, it's a little different for me. So I've always been able to relate, not just from a different angle, but because I've interacted with many Pakistanis along with other people from other places of South Asia when I grew up in a college campus in Thailand. So I've had friends who were, so not very close friends, but I've had friends. And I think of, in terms of art, yeah, I echo Tatoya, you know, I think of music, I think of Abida Parveen, I think of the Urdu Ghazal, I think of the language and how beautiful the language is, even though we have a very, you know, we've had a complex relationship, a conflictual relationship with the language. It's a beautiful language, and I think of that as well. Sorry, not the language, one of the languages of Pakistan, yeah. Which at some point, some people used to speak in my family as well, or do know, some of my friends do. Yeah, so I echo Tatoi that I do resonate with some of the artists. I don't know, however, many of the dancers of Pakistan.
Thank you so much, Seema. Suhaee, so basically the similar question towards you. What do you connect in your head when you think about Bangladesh or when you hear Bangladesh? So what comes to your mind?
So when I was very young, there was someone who was always like around us, who was always like a part of our family. He was basically an artist, but he had come to Pakistan as a refugee, and he was a Bangladeshi man and boy. Actually, wasn't even a man. And my father and him became very close, and my father kind of like started bringing him to his office because my father is an artist. And Mizan Rahman, I don't know if Masuma knows. So Mizan Rahman, we used to call him Mizan uncle, but he was like always there with us. And he was kind of like babysitting us when we needed to be, or just playing with us. So at that point, I didn't really know much about history. My family was like political in the sense we would have conversations going on. I hadn't gone to school yet, so we hadn't really read those books. So I was in like love with the music that he'd make us listen to. My mother had gone to Dhaka twice for conferences because she's a poetess, she's a feminist poetess. And so I was quite actually, and I got told a lot that I looked like I was from Bangladesh. And I often thought that was like amazing. Because I would hear things like Bangladeshi people interview. I was very young, and I was really kind of obsessed with the music because it sounded so sweet. And I remember trying to like learn the language and the poetry and hearing things from Mizan uncle, all of those things. Then when I went to school and I started, reading all the things that we read, like Sudeshna also said, or the kind of things that we start hearing. And also in school, like if there was any like reference to Bangladesh, a lot of children, even children, would be a little like, oh yeah, the Bangladeshis, like in a that sort of way. And I was really confused. So I remember like asking my parents, like, what is all this about? Aren't we like same kind of people? Because by that time, my mother was also going to India a lot. I had been to India. So for me, I didn't quite understand this whole India, Pakistan, Bangladesh divide at that point. I was kind of living in my own dream world, and I thought we're all like same people, and And so when I understood what was happening, I just felt guilty, about. I hadn't done anything but what our government had done, all the things that had happened. So yeah, I've always felt this deep connection with Bangladesh. I don't know many people there, but I did go to this girl-child peace camp in Nepal, where there were two Bangladeshi girls also, and I became really good friends with them. Also, there was like Indian girls and Sri Lankan girls. It was all a South Asian girl child peace camp, and we were all like 13, 14-year-olds. Um, so honestly, like I didn't have a very political view on things for most of my life. Even today, like I live in Italy, I always reach out to, if I have to like feel myself, feel South Asian, I look at Bangladeshis, I look at Indians, and I'm like, ah, my people, like it's. I mean, I can tell sometimes this is Pakistan, this is Indian. Sometimes with the body language I can tell, but I still feel like, yeah, that's home. For me, that's the sort of feeling, and I know there's all these things that happen, but I usually don't really, I can't put myself to think in that way. Perhaps because of how um, we grew up, and perhaps because of the way our parents never really talked about those things.
Hmm.
What my mother always said was, you better be very sorry, and always like apologize. I don't know if Masuma knows my mother, but yeah, she's a very strong feminist. And she was like, what happened was extremely wrong. And if you ever meet a Bangladeshi, you must apologize for what your country did. And so that's the only strict thing that she always said to us. And she still says that to everybody. She wants us, and we do feel that, it's not our responsibility, but it is, because we are that country. And it does, because when we think about that time, and my mother often made us think about it from a woman's point of view, because of, the feminist that she is, and all the things that she has taught us. It was, yeah, so that's my point of view on them. I really think of them as my own people in a way, because we look the same, and even if we don't speak the same language, sometimes we do. I mean, it's similar. I think our lives are quite similar.
Thank you so much. That was such a thoughtful, wonderful little essay. Let's dive deeper into the professional life. I will start with Sudeshna. When you started dancing as a little kid, as a child, right? So what did dance mean for you back then? So how did you perceive it? We were doing your traditional dance classes. You went to class. So as a kid, like, do you have any memories what it meant for you? And then versus like now, what does it mean for you now, looking in the future, looking at yourself, so maybe you can take us on this small personal journey of yours.
Absolutely. What happened is, my mother was still choreographing when she was pregnant with me. She was not performing, but she was choreographing and directing things. So I think I probably started from then. And what happened is, I actually didn't have any choice, to actually choose what I wanted to do, because it's somehow very organically, the thing happened, and I came into this dance field because my father is also from this cultural world. He's an actor and a media person. So both my parents would not be at home for longer periods of time. So what my mother would do, that she would pack everything when I was a kid, and take me to the rehearsals and the classes that she would take. And I think that actually got me into dance, staying in that environment, in the dance classes, listening to the bowls and the tals happening all the time, seeing the dancers or the students continuously taking classes in front of me. I actually started taking formal lessons quite a bit later in my life, because I think by the age of 6, I probably knew all the senior, most items and dances and the bowls and everything by heart, by just watching and listening. I actually formally started my classes standing on the floor probably from 7, when I was 7, but I was already dancing and saying the bowls quite very fluently. That somehow very organically and naturally got into me. And I didn't really choose to become a dancer or something. But after all these years of pursuing dance, I think there's this feeling that I recently had, this realization, I would say. Uh, we did this piece choreographed by Akram Khan this last March on the 100th birth centenary of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So he choreographed a piece on his famous speech that he gave on the 7th of March, 1971. And we trained for around 5 weeks for that piece. The company dancers came from London. And it was a very intense process that we went through. And I think I've been dancing on my life, but the realization I had after doing this intense work was that I think the best thing that I know is to dance. I probably don't know anything else, and I don't know what would I've done if I didn't, come into this line. And that is quite frightening, actually. It probably makes you vulnerable when you think about it in that way. That if somehow, God forbid, something happens and I stop dancing, I don't know what I'll do, what I'll have to do to move further in life. But at the same time, it is a feeling that makes you even stronger as a person, that that this is something that you are best at, that it gives you the confidence to move forward, and it enables you to view the world in a different way. So I think that is the realization that I have now about dance after coming all the way, all these years. But initially, when I started, I don't think I was that conscious of dance as something that I would, be so passionate about, that I would love to do, and something that I could not think anything else to do without. So I think it is as normal, as organic, as breathing, as eating, as, chatting with my family members or watching television or surfing the internet. So it is kind of a part of me now. It is not something that I do separately for myself, or it's not a very separate part of my personality. It is who I am. It is what I live, and it is what I breathe. So that is what dance is to me.
Whereas in Bangladesh, dance is a very accepted form of expression. In Pakistan, it is not. I have not seen it as such. So, Suhaee, you actually did have gone towards a creative field, but it's very different from what your parents do, and it's also going against the wind, really, going against the grain, so to speak, to kind of take up dance. I know your teacher Seema, like she's known for that. She's known for going against things and standing up for herself and standing up for other people. But how has your journey been? Like, how do people look at you dancing?
Yeah, so I think it was quite challenging, and till today, people tell my parents, sorry about that. Till today, people tell my parents, wow, you guys are amazing parents because you sacrificed so much for your child to become a dancer. And my mother says, what do you mean we sacrificed? We if she wanted to become a wrestler, we'd, give her like badam ka doodh, like, almond milk or something. We just provide. So if she wanted to do this, we just provided. But I have to say, even though my mother says like that, it wasn't as easy as just providing. I think it was easy for me on the family part, like just my immediate family, because we never like brought religion into these things. But for Pakistan, that's very important. Um, so maybe if I was a Christian or a Hindu, born Hindu or Christian, I think people would have accepted it a little bit. But since I was also a born Muslim, it was even harder in that sense. So, I mean, for example, I don't know, getting any injuries and then going to the hospital or to the doctors would literally say things like, are you guys from the red light area? Like, are you trying to put your daughter into prostitution or what? You know, why do you make her dance? So we basically stopped telling doctors that I was dancing and I had a certain injury or something. We started saying things like, well, we were exercising, she was exercising, so, you know, or something like that. Or she was playing sports. I don't like sports, you know, I don't play sports, but we had to always change things around. Then as I grew older and I was more independent, I remember trying to get sponsorships for my shows, the little shows that I used to do. And even in that, people would be like, okay, listen, can you like not say dance and just say like theater or something? And I was like, but there will be dance, and what's wrong with it? And they would say things like, okay, then what are your costumes going to be like? Like, you know, it's a thing like automatically if you're dancing, you're going to dance, I don't know, naked or something. And I was always really, and this is when I was still very young. I was already being independent and, you know, sort of putting things together for my shows when I was 16, 17 years old. So, I mean, I didn't realize that, but I think I was very naive also and vulnerable. But thank God I kind of like, because also I think men look at you much more differently when they know a woman is a dancer in Pakistan. um, it's immediately like you're sexually available, you know, for everybody. So I've had to go through that a lot. And of course, I was an age where I was also figuring these things out for myself, you know. How do I feel? And, you know, all, you know, about sexuality, about my body, about dance. And for me, these things weren't like, I mean, for me, dance is not about sex. And somehow it felt like it was for people in Pakistan. And that's why there was all this restriction. When I was doing my A levels, there was a school at Lyceum, there was a school show again. And I wanted to do a solo. So they said, yes, I could do. And of course, the school was amazing. But this one teacher who was organizing everything asked me to show her what I would do. And I was doing it. And at one point, I kind of like lay on my, you know, back and I come up, but I come up with my chest first. And she was like, oh, that's too seductive. Why did you do that? I was only 16 years old. I mean, you know, I mean, I've never felt like ashamed of this part of my body. But she was really rude and she said, no, this is too seductive and you can't do this. You can't do it like that. So things like that. I mean, it's, you know, it's not like one big thing, but like small things here and there. Then coming on social media, you know, I get a lot of, and it's obviously usually men that will send me all these weird, like I don't want to say the words, but they'll call me like prostitute or, you know, slut, whatever. In Urdu, I don't want to say it because it's so bad. um, but on the other side, there has been a lot of respect and love and, you know, people looking up to me, whether it's young girls or boys, even, not just youngsters, but also older people have been so kind. So I kind of lived life to understand and think that, oh, you know, it's always like this. There'll be a good part of it and there'll be a bad part of it. Um, but it's always been a little hard being the person that I am, and being from Pakistan and being a born Muslim. Um, it's always come into my way in one way or the other. So it was challenging, but I feel like if anybody wants to do something, they can just do it. But I think it's very hard when your family doesn't support you. Luckily for me, and it's a huge privilege, my parents were very supportive. They didn't have these issues that other parents might have. And I have so many friends who can't do things just because their parents won't understand things. So for me, it was just, you know, fighting with the society, but fighting with parents is another like big thing. At least I didn't have to go through that.
I'm sorry that you had to also go through this um, experiences of people looking at you in a very like physical way. So Seema, so basically what I was thinking is like your upbringing in terms of, you know, also you had some Bangladeshi folk dance experiences with your mom, and then you learned Bharatanatyam, but you very consciously decided to dance, you know, and learn Bharatanatyam. I remember that you learned some in Geneva. And I think that's super interesting because you very consciously decided that dance is something that I feel could help me to something, whatever you're going to explain that, what is going to, you know, do with you yourself and your body and your mind. And I'm really curious about that.
I encountered dance when I was young as a form of theater, like dance drama. And as I grew older, I didn't really think of myself as someone, you know, who danced. But then I would just dance, like, you know, like at a party or something. But my friends told me when I eventually got a chance to go to Paris to take dance classes. And the first dance classes I took, apart from a little bit of Indian classical, were from different cultures right there. So there was African, which there's African and, you know, Moroccan, Tunisian belly dance, right? Folk and other. So all these dances, I didn't just find them liberating, but they're obviously fluid and liberating. But I think when the teacher or the guru disciplines you, you learn that your body is, you know, is capable of contortion in a kind of artistic way, in a performance art sort of way. But it's also capable, like something like Bharatanatyam, I don't know if it has the same effect on everyone, but when I performed it initially in England, it was part of a theater group called Natyapriya. But, you know, I didn't get the training that most people do as a child and all the way up until they're adults. I didn't get that training. So there was a kind of fluidity between theater and dance and performance there. But when I actually started getting a little bit of training with Omkara in Geneva, I realized that it really helped me mentally, and not just to connect the body and the soul, but that it's a language, I think, that is transformative. And I think those who've been dancing for so long, like most of you, it's so organic that maybe you don't realize it until you step back. And it's the one thing you do very well, which is sort of like me in poetry. It's the one thing I do that I know I can do. But with dance, because it's not that, you know, first language that I can just do, it's one I learned consciously, and I find it healing and I find it transformative. Yeah, so like my African dance teacher would say, there's a connection between the earth and the sky when you do African dance. But I wanted to mention, I also sort of studied, because I studied a little bit of the 5 rhythms of Gabriel Roth. She has I don't know if you want to call it a theory, but it's a process of 5 rhythms. So there's like staccato, lyrical, and others. And it's a practice where you go through each of these rhythms. And, you know, it's not part of a dance convention as such, right? It's just rhythm as defined by her 5 rhythms. And it's a healing sort of dance therapy kind of thing.
The reason why I was so passionate about healing through movement or through dance was interesting to me, because I think it helped me kind of, you know, not completely, of course, there's a bunch of things one can need, but in so many places, like, it just makes you more self-aware. It just makes you so much more aware of who you are as a person, how you're feeling. And it's kind of meditation. It's kind of like meditation, but just doing it with the body. So I think Sudeshna and Seema might know of this thing called Gaga. It's a movement language, which is very now common in Europe. That was, in a way, very interesting also for me to learn, because you don't start with dancing, you start with floating. You know, you float basically, and that would really mean anything. You know, like it. But you just have to like keep going. No matter where your body's going, it's very internal. Like, you have to feel it happening from the inside, and it's not about showing you that, oh, look, I can float. You know, it's not so much about a physical float. It's a very internal thing. And I think that is also something I started putting into my workshops. So my workshops are not, they're like a bunch of things that I have knowledge of or that I've learned because I also did theater. There's a lot of amazing theater exercises that I felt like could go really well, but I like to do it very sensitively, because sometimes there are traumas or things on people's minds that are just, they could burst, it could just explode. So I have to be very, very sensitive and careful. Um, and yeah, like if someone takes these sessions with me, like um, not just once, but a couple of times, for example, I would go into the memories, or then we could go into, and that's really, um, or the present, or things like that. I think why it works with most of us is because we're not really connected with ourselves so many times. Even as a dancer, I was not connected with myself for a long time. You asked Sudeshna about, how she felt as a child, and then how, and I was thinking that when I was a child, I was like very free, and I wanted to just dance because it gave me a lot of pleasure. But after that, for many years, it really became about looking good, or doing it good, or being perfect, you know? And it's only like, say, the last 4 or 5 years that I've started to come out of that thing. I don't want to wear makeup all the time. I don't want this jewelry. I don't want these costumes. What about my body? Like, can I be just sweating? Can I be just dusty? Can I be on the floor? Like, that rawness of it. It just took me away from that sort of thing. And suddenly dance was all about looking perfect and just being, this most beautiful person who's always graceful. And no, we're not always graceful. Um, we're also messy, and we're also, I don't know, and so I just felt like, even as a dancer, where we can flaunt about the fact that, oh, we're very aware of our bodies. We might be, but we're not always connected to ourselves.
Mhm.
We also have to put an effort into that, And I think, I think once you connect with yourself, with your emotions, you really start to. It doesn't mean that problems will, we can ever escape problems in our lives. They will keep coming. It's just we're able to like deal with them a little better because we know who we are, at least, or we at least learn to appreciate and accept this body, with all its flesh, with all its bones, with everything on it, whether it's hair, whether it's scratches, whether it's, I know, stretch marks, whatever it is. I think it's very important to just accept, and I think that's what I kind of do with my workshops. I think the first goal is to really, and the acceptance doesn't come so easily. I think acceptance, forgiveness, these things sound very cliched, but when I do them and when I think about it, it's not very easy to do. We do have a lot of anger. We do have a lot of like, oh, I don't want to like get into this thing, I don't know if I'm speaking clearly because there's so much to speak about it, and I don't want to like take too much time. But yeah, I hope you were like able to make some sense out of it.
Dance in Bangladesh for a long time now has been about only the external thing that we get to see on stage, and I believe more of the physical rather than the emotional or the internal thing that you have inside. So that is how I grew up as well as a dancer, and that is how I learned to become a dancer as well. I had to practice a lot. My mother was a very strict teacher. I had her 24 hours at home. So I think I was in a position where I didn't have any leeway that the other students probably got, because they would only come to classes and then do the classes and go back home. But I was continuously with her. So even when I was at home, she was like pushing me to be better, to go to another level. And I was practicing everything. So I did a lot of hard work actually on that. And it was what Suhaee said, was about reaching another level every single time that you performed, about your hands being in the perfect position, about your maybe your aramandi being in a proper place, maybe your feet staying in the position and not moving apart while you're dancing, and getting your physical strength more and more. So it has, for a long time, I think it still is like that in Bangladesh, how people perceive dance. And it is all about how beautiful and how nice you are going to look when you're on stage. So it is all about the jewelry and the costumes as well. And you think about what else to add, what colors you would look good on stage, how the colors would react to the light you have on stage. And also you have in mind what the audience wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that thing at the back of your mind as well. You probably, about what Suhaee said, that she was coming up with her chest, and that was something that probably the audience would not want to see. So that society is also a part of that thing when you're thinking about choreographing and going on stage. But I think getting in touch with contemporary dance, for personally for me, and getting in touch with choreographers who do contemporary dances and doing all these residency has brought me to a realization that it is not only physical, but it is also about the emotional and the mental and the internal. And it is why I'm stressing so much on the piece that Akram Khan came and did, because it is there that through that intense process that we had that realization that it is not about just what your body, absolutely your body has to be perfect. They demanded the best, it had to be on the perfect lines and the positions, and everything had to be very perfect. But it is also about how you emoted from inside. It is not about how you express. Yes, the expression has to be there, but the expression is not only on the muscles only on your face, but every single fiber of muscle on your body, even this part, which is not active probably. I mean, probably this part you probably cannot move it on your own, but it has a role in the performance. So to understand that, you have to deep delve deeper into yourself, and you have to connect with every part of your body. And that's what I'm actually trying to do with the younger students that we are teaching now. Since the pandemic, we have gone online, and I'm kind of trying to reach out to them in a way that try and feel how the inactive parts of your body can become active. Just feel how the tingling sensations can feel in those body parts, even if they're not moving actually, even if you don't have joints in those parts, how you can actually feel those parts. So I think that is something, as a dancer, I think I have had that realization for the last, 1.5 years. I've been dancing for a long time, but it took me quite a long time to come to this realization that it is not only about just the body. It is also about how you feel mentally, how, every single emotion that you have in your own life. And it is not about keeping your life outside the wings and stepping onto the stage and you becoming a totally different person and performing in front of the audience. You have to bring yourself on the stage as well. And that's how you are going to connect with your body. We kind of say all these things about how we speak our inner emotions through dance and everything, but in most of the times it happens that we are not emoting what we feel. I believe it strongly that it does not come out when we are dancing. So I think it is something that needs to be worked on more among dancers in Bangladesh. I would say more sessions probably, or it should be incorporated from a very early level when you're teaching the kids. so that they have this concept of connecting to their body parts, to their active and inactive body parts, about knowing their body, what each part can do, and how you feel about doing it. It's not just what the body can do, doing splits and, doing all those kind of things, but what do you feel when you do that? So I think we don't really put much importance on the feeling part about how you dance. I love to go on stage and I love to dance. I think I'm most alive when I'm on stage. I'm totally a different person. But how does it connect to the person I actually am in my life? I think what we need to think about more. How my anger, my frustrations, my passions, my interests, enthusiasms, inspirations come and play a role in that performance is what actually we need to probably work more and more. And I think I have a long way to walk in that path of realization about connecting with my body, but I think I've had the realization of walking in that path. And I would really like to bring dancers in Bangladesh, young kids, students who are really interested in dance, to actually think about it, because it's not only because of it's not only because you want to dance, but it's kind of something that also helps you in your life as well. It's not only about going onto the stage, even if you're not a professional dancer, but just learn dance out of interest or out of passion. I think it helps you become a better person, to understand someone, to empathize with people, I think, more. So that connectedness, that understanding of connection, I think is something that we should work probably more among dancers in Bangladesh.
So as an artist, what I feel is that 4 years we learn how to draw and paint, and then after we graduate or while we're graduating, we have to unlearn, so that, as Suhaee puts it, what are we inside, the raw part of it. So we have to unlearn the rudimentary things that have been taught to us, or the basics, and then go on to conceptual. So where I see dance, my mother had learnt dance, and I never wanted to become a dancer, because she'd tell me, you slouch, you should become a dancer. It would help you hold your posture well. You will. I hated dance from that moment on. It seemed so unenjoyable. And my son dances, and he dances just for pleasure. So he says, that sometimes in my room, I just close my room and I dance. And he loves to dance. And when I see him dancing, it's fun, it's something that I feel that it's his raw instinct. He loves it. For my mother, it was a very, very learned thing. So, how would you advise, how would you make your students unlearn? How would you make them bring joy into their dancing? Like, I've seen Suhaee in Birmingham dancing at Sai of the Musafir, and I felt that you were so engrossed in your dance. I don't know if you were, but I felt that was more of more engagement than rehearsed, very, very heavily rehearsed dance. And I felt you were enjoying it. You were into things. Although I saw that Seema, your teacher who was sitting with me, uh, seemed a little tense at the lack of formal process coming in. But yet, obviously, you're her student and she loves you, so she was going along with it. So how would you teach your students to unlearn and enjoy Sudeshna?
I think that process, I think, of internalizing, I think, is most important, I would say, in this case, because unless you know the internal feeling of dance, I don't think you get to enjoy it. It's just, it makes it more harder, I think, because it is painful. So sitting in an aramandi for such a long time, keeping your hands in an attaramba for such a long time, but unless you understand why you are doing it, or unless you understand the reason that you want to do. So like you said, that your son just wants to dance just because he feels the pleasure in it. Until they understand the pleasure, I don't think they can bring out the joy. And that understanding of the pleasure, I think, is more of how they need to understand the feeling of dance. It's not just about the physical part. You need to understand the mental, emotional part of the dance as well. Because for me, I think for the last few years, when I'm practicing, when I'm stretching, it is a kind of, I think, a masochistic feeling, but I feel joy when I have the pain or while I'm stretching. It hurts, but somehow it gives me a pleasure. And the more I can bend, the more I see that I can bend a few inches more, maybe, than the last few days, I feel that this pain is giving me something out of it. I can reach out more, or maybe this thing is getting better uh, after stretching a few days. So that pain actually starts giving me pleasure. I kind of I started enjoying the pain. It's not a very bad pain, or it's not a very bad stretch or something, but I kind of started to enjoy the thing. So that came out of my realization. So until I think that students don't have that realization, I think they'll only put importance on the external factors of dance. So for them, unlearning would become a bit difficult, because they don't know what they're unlearning for.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, so they need to actually understand, to bring out the emotions, to connect with people, to express what they have inside, to feel joy, just dance out of joy. I think they need to understand what feeling actually is, not just standing in the positions and doing the dance perfectly from beginning to an end, but what they feel when they're doing every. So it has to be in a slow mo process. So when you've started the item and you end it, the entire thing probably should move in a very slow mo, like a slow mo movie or a slow mo scene, that you actually feel different kind of things when you're doing the dance, and not just finishing it off in the proper rhythm. So actually they, I think, just other than teaching them to dance, I think these kind of sessions that Suhaee uh, specializes on and is doing her workshops on, I think those kind of things should be incorporated into dance classes as well, from a very early age, I think, to help them get involved with the art, to get them understand a bit more about the art than just doing it out of hobby, or because their parents have pushed them into the dance classes and just like, go, you have to dance. Other than studies, what do you do? I dance. So other than just doing that, I think they need to understand what feeling is. So I think those kind of things should be incorporated into the lessons as well from a very early age for kids.
The desire to showcase and frame dance as a pretty little thing where we dress up and perform on stage is relatively new, right? Like all art at some point has become either highly erratic and sacred in the form of prestige in a stage or in a museum. This is all relatively new, right? I think everyone knows that dance is ancient and has been around in different forms and as a collective art, whether you want to call it indigenous collectivity or any other kind of collectivity. It has been around in this part of the world. And the moment we look at it, we see our connections with, other countries outside our nation state. So whether it's Cambodia, Thailand, Bangladesh. It's been around as ritualized performance, and each of those ritualized performances have a context and a reason for the expression and the feeling that the dancers here were talking about to come out. So as we, all three of us sort of know that Bharatanatyam has, plays with so much emotion and story, and it comes from a story, and it tells a story, and all of that, you can't get away with not having expression or emotion, but it's very stylized, it's conventional in a stage. And the question you're asking is, why are we now talking about maybe taking out of the stage and connecting it as a language that is healing? Or even if we talk about performance art, not just transformative, but transgressive, right? When does something have risk? So for someone in Pakistan, a certain kind of dance may be risky. Maybe a performance by Shadhana with Lubna Mariam, they can take those steps, risks with the body and sexualized meaning and images of dance. But there are other things that are risky in each context. So we may be taking risk with the state, if we transgress at a certain level. And why has that not happened so much in dance? Like, why has it happened in theater in Bangladesh, in performance art, and the connection between theater and performance art? But with dance, we don't see people sort of, using their body contortions that they did, like someone like Kalidas Karnakar very early on, going to an area in Bangladesh and protesting the Farakka barrage with his body. It wasn't, dance per se, but it was definitely a risk, and it was movement. But now everything has kind of become mimicry. So even when there's experiment, it has to become mimicry. We had our own sort of response to what we called human sculpture or performance art. But why we cannot make the connection between dance and those kinds of transgressive acts in Bangladesh, maybe because, yes, as they were saying, we still venerate and respect and create exclusive circles and spaces for dance, where we can look at it at a distance, where it doesn't interfere with our reality too much.
How do you succeed to bring more men into this world? How do you make it more fluid? Maybe there are much more men than women, and I don't know. But I'm just thinking about that. Let's call it, being more open towards all genders.
Hmm. So definitely in Pakistan, it's a nightmare for any man to even think about dance. All the men that I've known have been beaten up by their families. One of my seniors, Munawar Chow, I call him Mani Bhai. He was literally like, beaten up with chains by his father for when he found out that he was dancing. So for them, it's worse, but at the same time, just to like quickly talk about the past. So like a little going back, not completely where women and men felt very equal to each other, but there was a time when men would dress or sing as women, so that the women could be in the homes and men could take that part also. So even there, men kind of like were able to do that, and that was appreciated. They would dance and sing as women. Today, I think, just to start from what is expected, like from women, it's expected to become more feminine, become more graceful, become more, like Masuma said, be more, have a great posture, I don't know, be more fit. That's what's expected of women who dance. And of course, I don't agree with those expectations. I just feel like everybody has their own body, everybody feels different in their body, everybody wants to express themselves differently. Men, on the other hand, I think for them, when a man wants to dance, also this is in Europe, I think, they're expected to be um, more manly. They're expected to like move, but more manly. And the moment they're a little feminine or they do connect with the feminine side of themselves, it's like an assumption, oh yeah, he must be gay. It's like it's a thing. And I really hate that. Because it's not a bad thing to be gay or anything. It's just, why should we assume anything for anybody? Um, I have a lot of male friends who are dancers, and yes, some of them happen to be gay, and some of them are not. And so I think it's just wrong for us to assume that. And I think what we could do today, but I have to say that there's another huge problem in Europe regarding men and women in the dance field. It's that men get more jobs in the dance field than women, because there's so many women, they're just taken for granted now. A lot of my European friends are really angry. They're like, okay, so now men get the jobs, like any dance companies that open any positions, it's usually boys. Akram Khan recently made this documentary, or I think he was part of this documentary film, which is going up on Netflix or is on Netflix now. Even there, 3 male dancers were featured and only 1 female dancer was featured. So even that like became a debate, at least on my Facebook. Why, like, it's great that men are there, but again, like, there's no equality. Again, they're getting more. And then I think it's also more. I think men are more in terms of work and companies and that sort of thing. They're more appreciated because maybe they don't want us women to like start families and then take a break from things. And well, who knows, maybe we don't take a break, or maybe we do, but with men the things can keep going on. They don't have to get pregnant, they don't have to have a child, they don't have to. And it's just so I think it has come to that now in the dance world, in Europe at least. In terms of still like going to workshops, where I studied in Italy, um, every time we hardly had like 1 boy, 2 boys. It was it was always like that. You're like this huge group of girls, and there was like 1 or 2 boys hardly. And that was always the case. Um, and I think that's why people are like really wanting more men. How can we make it more fluid? I think just by um, in terms of my students, at the moment I have no men learning from me long term. Like in workshops, boys do show up, men also show up, like 50, 60-year-old men also show up, but which is always like, wow, like that's amazing. Like I'm glad that they want to explore their bodies and explore their movement. But in terms of long-term students, the people that I'm teaching regularly, I have no boys or men at this point, just women. So yes, I mean, I really don't know how we can make this more fluid. I just feel it has to start from when we are born, right? Like how your parents socialize you or what they tell you. I think just let boys and girls be the way they want to be. We shouldn't have this thing of girls should be girls, boys should be boys. I personally enjoy my womanhood a lot. I love having lipstick on, or what, like I like dressing up, or um but at the same time, I shaved my head for a movie, and that was quite something for me, just not having my hair on me for the first time. um and a lot of people said to me, like, even people that I thought were progressive were like, oh, but now you don't have hair, like, where's all your femininity gone? How can you be a woman without hair? And so that really helped me kind of, I don't know, connect to the masculine side of me, or whatever this is. It's just, I think we all are a mix of different things. And I think if we let our children be what they want to be, by the time they want to learn dance or music or art or go into banking, do whatever they want, at least they get to be themselves. And in terms of work, I really feel that we should trust women, and give women the freedom to start a family if they want. Now it's become this thing, like, if you're like this strong woman, like, I don't know if she's a dancer, you should just be that, like, if you want to get married, or not even married, like in Europe, marriage is not even a important thing, of course. For us it is, but I'm saying like long-term relationships where you want to start a family, that should really not be a matter of concern. I mean, if someone wants to, great. If someone doesn't want to, great. It's totally up to people. Um, Fathers somehow get away with it. whether they're dancers or not. They can stay dancers and stay busy, and the moms just have to. I just want to mention one last quick thing. Ohad Naharin is this huge name in the European dance world right now. He's the one who started the Gaga movement language. And I watched a documentary on him, and he fell in love with one of his dancers, and they got married. They had a child, and there was a scene where the mother is finally back to her, rehearsals, and the child is creating a fuss, and he's just sitting there, and he's telling everybody, "I'll do this," but she has to eventually just pack her things, take the child, and leave. And he's like, "Okay, let's start it." And it was just upsetting. Like, can't it be an equal thing? I mean, of course, he's the choreographer, so he has to stay, but he could have also picked her up, or she was dancing. I don't know. But I feel like it has to be an equal thing on both sides. And at the same time, everybody should have the right to think whether they want to be have a family or not, or whether they if men want to dance in a more softer and gentler way, if a woman wants to dance in a more, fierce, aggressive way, it's totally up to them. I think we shouldn't, like, with dance forms, like I'm also following a guru these days, again, for Bharatanatyam, because I had left it for a while, and so I just want to. And she's very traditional, but she also like said something like, yeah, when you're a man, you can like do more jumps and everything, and when you're a woman, it's less because you have so much jewelry on, so you have to. But I don't know, it should just be like, you know, I think it's as simple as that. We should just, and which is not very easy, but we should let children be the way they want to be. And then I think the world, the art world, can sort of start changing a little.
So and this is slightly digressing from the art scene, but so you did a few drama serials. I saw one of yours on TV, but then you did a movie also, and you're saying that you've done another one right now. You've shot another one. How was that experience?
I've always been interested in acting. I think since I was a child, for me, the world was like just dancing, acting, and singing. Acting, yeah, for me, it started with Seema ji, my teacher. I did theater with her and different things. TV plays, yeah, I really just someone casted me because I looked the part for a certain role when I was 12 years old. And from there, things kind of started. But I kind of got sick of that because of the way TV is done in Pakistan and the stories that we show. And also there, I really wanted, because I started playing characters where, I was this woman who was always crying because my husband doesn't love me, my father's dead, my brothers don't love me. And I'm educated, but I can't do anything for myself. And I was like, what am I doing? And it paid me really well, that particular drama serial. And I was like, really, like, I after that, I was like, no way, I don't want to do these things anymore. What am I doing? But this movie they just wanted me to audition. What was it called? My Pure Land. They just wanted me to audition. I auditioned because the character was nice. It was, again, it was a strong woman, and she was from my part of Pakistan, Sindh. So I could kind of connect in a lot of ways to this woman. Um, so they auditioned me, they selected me for that, and it just happened in that way. I didn't really think of like going into movies or anything like that. It happened. I like acting. I did it. This other movie was also, the only thing is people give me very intense characters. They will never give me like a light sort of thing, because maybe they don't see that from me. It always has to be very intense, which maybe I also enjoy, but it does like get to me. So yeah, like it's not something that I do like. It comes once in a blue moon to me. If something comes to me and it's nice, I do it. If not, that's it. Like, and then I just, dance is something that I keep doing. Acting will come and go. So yeah, that experience was amazing because, I mean, the character was so strong, and this woman is like protecting her mother and her sister and their homeland basically from people who are trying to take over their land. And like the only hard part for me was guns, and I'm really against weapons, but I understood for them, or for that woman, weapons were not like to kill anybody, but just to protect yourself. And in Sindh or in rural areas of Pakistan, that's what you can really rely on. So being that character and having guns in my hand, AK-47s, and shooting them was quite a lot. But I loved being someone else, and that woman especially. I think I did learn a lot from her when I finished filming for that.
Seema, I have a question for you. I recall that you were doing a performance in Dhaka. How is that perceived in Dhaka or in Bangladesh?
It was in a glass gallery, so in Bonani, and it was sort of like a side performance along with someone's exhibition, and that's already a framing. However, my performance was not only was there glass walls, I actually threw something out into the street of Bonani, so I had a sort of glimpse of how the rickshawallas took it. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about how people in Bangladesh perceive something huge and immense like the Dhaka Art Summit, where all the performance art takes place inside the building, and what people outside, the drivers, sort of stare at is this huge depiction of their own poverty as art, followed by the usual glamorous sort of corporate designs and icons and brochures and the media houses. So it wasn't that the rickshaw probably didn't, there was no violent reaction to anything I did, but I think it was a pretty risque performance to some extent. I think with my work, whether it's language or art, it's so, I am protected by obscurity, but it's not intentional. So there is a complexity to using, different kinds of media and having a language that perhaps is a bit awkward, meaning the language of a little bit of dance mixed in with a little bit of speech. And I had a partner doing it with me, a woman who also worked at Depart. So it was still within a safe space in the sense that it's Banani and the street out there. But I did hear that the police wondered if something had happened because I had thrown a doll, which I had sort of violated. So I'd kind of violated a doll and thrown it out. And then we had the rest of the performance and a poem playing in the background. So I wouldn't say it was transgressive at all in terms of my parameters of transgression, but it was definitely different. And I think those who are connoisseurs or seasoned performance artists in Bangladesh, and there are many, one of them came to watch it and she's like, oh, I didn't know this was possible. And I was happy with that reaction because I think there was a lot of stillness as the performance happened. And I think a performance that makes you think, one that creates a little bit of rupture, just as poetry works, whether, it's really great aesthetically or not. I mean, those are not really the questions that performance art poses to us, whether it's good art or bad art. So I don't think we do transcend the circles that you're talking about, but I think it does have small ripples in terms of an extended circle. I think a lot more has to be done in terms of reaching extended circles. I mean, after that, you get a screenshot and you put it in Facebook, and that's it. No one makes comments because they're confused.
But Sudeshna, I'm curious to hear about your, how do you use social media for yourself, or media, or the internet in general?
For me personally, I am not that active professionally on social media. I mean, I don't have that much of videos or many posts where where there are videos of me dancing in social media. But I see a lot of performances on social media, and I think there's this two sides to it actually, where you actually get to see a lot of things that you can't when you're at home. You get to see a lot of things on the screen that you wouldn't have been able to see. For instance, Akram Khan just put up one of his productions called the Until the Lions for 1 month on YouTube for everyone to view it. And we got the chance to see a full length Akram Khan production on YouTube from our homes, which probably we wouldn't have had the chance to ever see on a full length anywhere in Europe where it was staging. And with that amount of the ticket for people like us in Bangladesh, the tickets costs quite a lot, and to actually travel to those places and to get to see those productions, I think you actually have the benefits of actually getting to watch these kind of things on social media. And you get to see a lot of activism also on social media when it comes to arts and dance and everything. But there are a few downsides to it as well when you're using the social media, I think, is because everything kind of gets a bit mixed up on what you actually want to focus or actually what you want to do. So there's a lot of confusion actually, and a generalized version on social media that you get to see. Because see, when it comes to dance in this pandemic, in the last 7 to 8 months, we've seen speaking as a dancer, I've seen a lot of dances on social media, people putting up their dances, recording on their terraces, in their balconies, and just wanting to dance. And there have been quite a few wonderful performances. And there have been performances, I wouldn't say performances, but there have been dances of people who were just wanted to move around, to do something in the pandemic, because they wanted a let out of their homes and just wanting to do something. So probably there are people who have learned who have learned dance quite a few years ago and probably aren't in touch with dance, and they have come out with what they had experienced a few years ago. And so there's this confusion in how you actually would like to view what you see on social media. Would you address it as something that you see professionally, or something that comes out of passion? Or I don't know if I'm making sense, but what I want to say is that you don't actually have a very clear view when you're viewing art in social media. That's what I feel like, and also when you have art on social media, in this time we don't have anything else to do. I mean, we don't have much choice, but I don't think it makes an impact or an effect on the audience that it is supposed to do when it is done in its original version, or the places that it's supposed to be, in the natural scene, or on a stage, in an auditorium, or in a theater, or probably in an amphitheater, or in somewhere on the streets where you're doing performance art or something. I don't think it actually makes that intended impact that you want want to have on people when you're putting up art on social media. I think that's what I feel it gets a bit, everything gets a bit clumped up when you are actually using social media to promote, or I wouldn't say promote, but actually put up your art on social media for people to access it or view it. I mean, there are things that you that's beneficial. I mean, you get a lot out of it, but I don't think the intended impact is quite there when you're using social media. I think it makes a more greater effect when you see it in its natural scene or natural position. For me personally, I don't feel the impulse to put things on social media. That's what I would say. I don't feel the stimulation to put up my work for people to see on social media. I would rather have them in front of me while I'm performing,
Okay,
because
so
I
Sudesh,
enjoy that connection with the with people when I'm performing.
so Sudeshna, I think with visual artists and with illustrators, when we put our art on social media, we are actually promoting ourselves, okay? Because that's
Yeah,
the way our art sells, other than through formal gallery channels. And
yeah,
that's the way for illustrators, that's the way they get jobs and future projects. But maybe it is different with dancers, which I just realized, because even when I made a video, I couldn't put it on social media because once it's seen, it's finished, you know.
yeah,
So once a dance is seen, maybe it loses that, but maybe just clips of your dance would, let's say if you guys were looking for jobs or
mm,
you wanted shows, then just clips of your dance might help. But yes, I get
yeah,
that for uh, something that is time based,
yeah.
maybe it needs to be more
It needs to be.
it needs to be seen in real. So but
It's
how,
also something that I feel has a very it doesn't have much longevity, about what you said, that it's finished, but it also has, you also have the option to scroll it up after 5 to 6 seconds. And even if I put it, I don't know who's viewing it and how much they have watched it. So I may have put it up, but I don't actually. And even there are sometimes that people have not viewed it fully, but have great work, wonderful work. That was fabulous. Oh wow, amazing. So there are like there, even if it has 100 and 200, 300 comments and likes and loves and reactions on the videos, I wouldn't actually know if they have seen it in its entirety, or if even if it was viewed just for a few seconds, or whether they actually like it or were compelled to comment just because they know me or something like that. So I think for dancers, it's a bit difficult to interact with audience by putting up performances on social media. But I agree with you, for getting jobs or getting people to know you better, I think clips and things are very helpful on YouTube, and yeah, for promoting your art and for promoting yourself. Yes.
but also I feel that maybe if even if people see half of it, they get the
Mm.
gist of it. Like for Suhae's mother's clip that somebody had put up, it was a beautifully narrated story. And when I heard half of it, I heard the half and then I commented. And then I went back to it in my free time and I heard the whole thing out because I was so interested in it that, like people will comment, but if the comment is positive, means they are interested. They will go back to it's not usually that you're driving a car, you're doing something, you have something going on there, and you've heard something and then you feel, okay, at night I'm going to go back to this is very interesting.
Yeah.
But so how would you, Seema, if you were to guide people or leave a message for people who are pursuing performance art, because what you mentioned for Dhaka Art Summit was a performance art piece, what kind of guidance would you give them to follow performance art, because it's not a field that pays a lot in this part of the world, but yet artists do performance pieces because it is something they feel so strongly about. It is a message that they have to get across. So how would you guide them for that?
Yeah, I think it's a niche community. So those who are interested in it definitely know a lot about it and watch performance artists. Uh, whether it's international performances in summits or within the circle of artists. So, I mean, there's a lot of exchange between visual artists and performance artists. And as I said, the theater. What would I say? I'm actually not on social media now, but I was there for a while. And I was only there in social media when I lived in Bangladesh. It was a very short period. And I left. But I have seen some interesting stuff being done by people who begin as social media artists. So not those who are trying to transfer their work on stage onto the screen. As you said, I think there are some complexities there. But those who begin as social media artists are already beginning using that medium. So as I was saying to Samira, I have a student who makes short clips and videos of her body as body art. So it's not, pure performance art, and it's not, quite dance, but it is a visual video medium. It's basically painting on screen in a way with using her body. And she just basically paints her body. And occasionally she has music and she adds a bit of graphic design. So I don't think I answered your question because I'm not on social media. So I haven't thought of the question of how to get people interested through social media. But I think young people of this generation everywhere are so engaged and intelligent, even in terms of social media, that if they wanted to find out about something, they would. So I think the question is whether they come into contact with this stuff. And I think that's the line is that transfer from one art that they're interested in to another art is where we can intervene. So like where you're interested in music videos, here's performance art and you see it.
I've seen you on social media and I really enjoyed you, man. I enjoyed your clips a lot. And it's like a little, I really enjoyed it. It was like, I miss theater a lot. So I saw your piece and I was like, oh, this is so nice, So maybe just before we, end the session, maybe you can just give us a short, brief thought about like your social media use, how you deal with it and how you recommend it, for example, for your students, how to manage their promotion.
So I do use social media, and I have been. I think I'm not extremely active anymore. I mean, the way others would be. I'm definitely much more active than I think most people who just can't find themselves to put their things up. Yeah, I think I kind of started it back in 2011 when there was so many things happening in my life, and also just before that I had done some very important projects, and everybody was like, well, you should have a page or something, and I was like, well, I'm not, and that shyness that one feels, that I'm not anybody, why should I put my things up? But eventually I realized it wasn't so much about I don't know, being a star or being this really established artist, or whatever an established artist means. I think for me at that point, it was really start putting my work out there, and it did get me work. It did, give me the opportunity to, kind of connect with people. I mean, Masuma and I are connected on social media, and I think we knew each other on social media before we met each other. At least I knew of her from there too. Of course, I remembered you coming to school, but as who you are as a person, as an artist, all of that happens there. Now, how do I use it? I put my I will put something up if I'm, I don't know, doing a workshop, or if something's about to come, like I'll obviously like put this thing is about to come up. But I also use it in a personal way, in the sense that I do like sometimes just dance, and I just want to like, I dance a lot and I don't record it every time, but when I do, and I'm okay with putting it up. Also for me, I don't have those things where I have to look like perfect to put something up. I'm quite okay with putting myself, or like showing myself to be like a raw person. And it is hard. I completely agree with Sudeshna on a lot of things she said in regards to, I'd love to have people in front of me. And I think because I was getting the opportunity to perform, I was very comfortable putting videos up because I knew I had performances. But this year it's been really hard because now I'm like, is this it? Like, this is all I'm going to do now. I'm just going to like dance in front of this camera, this mobile phone in front of me. Um, so that is starting to get to me now. I haven't performed in almost 1 year since January. So yeah, that is, again, it's mixed, but I do enjoy putting things up. This one time I randomly put my Instagram on live and I just danced. People were like saying whatever. I wasn't looking. Sometimes I find myself to be very selfish. I'll post something and I'll just go away. I don't want to like immediately connect with people. I take some time before I get back to what people have to say about something I've posted, and before I interact with them. So I don't know if that's selfish or if that's just like making sure they mean what they are saying. Yeah, that's what I do. So like I'll sing, or I'll post a video. And in terms of how I can connect, I think I just found, like, no matter what space I'm in, I'll connect with the camera, because I find when I do that, like if I look into the camera and I connect with that, people feel like I'm talking to them, or I connect with them. And that kind of like that those are the videos that always work really well. Like, people really connect with me in that moment. um for me, the likes and all don't matter so much. Maybe initially they did, because I wanted to, like, it was a thing, like if you had more likes, if you had more followers, you'd be more important. Now I'm at a point where I just feel like everybody's so different. I'm glad the people who follow me are really there for me, and they're not just there for, I don't know, like just to see my personal life. Because I'm not like saying things like, oh, this is what I eat in the morning, this is my routine. I don't do those things. It's just a random like posting of my work, basically. And if I have talked about my life, I kind of relate my life into my work sometimes. It's not so much, it's not always things like, I don't know, this is, or like even selfies, like I've stopped taking them. Makes me a little uncomfortable now. I used to do it a lot more before. I used to feel like if I put a beautiful picture up of myself, I would get like something, and it happens. It did happen. But now it's really more about when I feel like it. So I really go with the flow. It depends on how I'm feeling. And in these days, with all the privacy issues that have come up regarding social media, Facebook, Instagram, I'm trying to do less and less personal, but more and more just work, or like not work, but just dance, because that's what I do. Sometimes I feel like the dance that's not people who have not put so much like thought or like real effort into it get so much more attention. And it doesn't mean that I want more attention, but it's unfair to anybody who puts on a lot of effort. Somebody will just like do some funny things, and that will be like, oh, they're amazing dancers. But what about people like Sudeshna and me, and who really like think about what we do, like we feel it. um, that's sometimes where I feel like, you know, it's unfair to just see that as dance. And of course, that's more easy, and you don't have to think so much there. You have to think when you watch us performing things like that, and so maybe that's a little hard. So I'm sure on social media, a lot of people just will go like scrolling on my thing, because it can be intense. Or sometimes I've posted silence pieces, and this man or a couple of people on that one had commented saying, are you mad? Are you out of your mind? Why aren't you dancing to music? Have you like, it's strange for them to do strange things. I mean, it's not strange for me to dance to silence, but yeah. But I'm kind of like really balanced for myself. I feel like a little balanced, and I don't let it get to me so much anymore. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I'm just like, because now it happens all the time. So I'm like, okay, I'll post when I want and I won't worry about these things. If there's any comments or any messages, I just delete them. I don't bother interacting with those people. Yeah, it's just better to ignore them.
Well, sounds quite healthy. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you to be connected, and maybe yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. And the wonderful thing is that, we've seen each other met each other for just 2 hours, and there's so much of connection already, with the ideas, the thoughts that we have and shared. I think that's wonderful. And that, I think, is the beauty of art, that you just meet someone for the first time in your life and you connect immediately. So thank you for getting us connected like this and getting us to share so much in between us.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you guys for coming on,
Thank
because
you, Seema.
it was
Thank
really
you.
nice to get to know you.